All right, what's up, guys? VV back with another video. And in today's video, guys, let me put my face back on here. I wanted y'all to see the title screen there. But yeah, in today's video, guys, we're going to be doing a Theorycraft style video. We're going to be doing some brainstorming. I haven't done a video like this in quite some time now. And I wanted to, I've had this idea in my mind. I've mentioned it probably in the past like months worth of videos where I wanted to, hash out this idea, bring it up to you guys, see what y'all think about it, bring it to y'all's attention and see what y'all think about it. So what we're going to be dealing with today is the concept of micro versus macro. Now, real quick, guys, this is not going to be like my standard videos. My standard videos is where I do something for everybody. This is going to be much more towards theory crafting. When I started this channel, I called it the VV Theory. I wanted there to be a lot of theory crafting, a lot of brainstorming, not just deck building, but also stuff for newer players and older players and taking your game to the next level. And that is what this video will be focusing on, is taking your game to the next level. And this applies to new players and older players because we're going to be conceptualizing the idea of a micromanagement versus a macromanagement within the world of TCGs. Okay, because this is something that I haven't really heard people talk about, but I think it is something worth talking about because when you could start pinpointing where your problems are, whether it be a micro problem or a macro problem, I think you can go from there and again, take your game to the next level based on that. So let's go ahead and dive in. We're going to be talking about this. And of course, any kind of comments, questions, suggestions, please leave them down in the comment section below. I want to hear what you guys have to say about this idea. Is this something you've been thinking about, or is this something you've never heard of, never thought of? And we can go from there. So let me say this up front too. Let me go to the next screen here. Before we dive into the nitty gritty details, the entire idea of micro and macro, I get the idea from real-time strategy games, RTS games. And to some extent, MOBAs as well, Massive Online Battle Arenas. RTS stands for real-time strategy. Think of games like Warcraft, not World of Warcraft, but Warcraft 2 and Warcraft 3. And think of games like StarCraft, StarCraft Brood Wars, StarCraft 2, and so on. That's an RTS game. And then you have games that are more like MOBAs, which are actually based off of RTS engines typically. But your MOBAs like League of Legends. Okay, you have, and in these games, let me focus more on like StarCraft for this example. In RTS games, you have micromanagement of your small little tiny units, right? You have to control each one of your individual units and go about things that way. But then you also have to take into consideration your macro element. And the best players have a strong mixture of both micro and macro. Okay, macro being like all your production and all, creating more units so you can micro them to win the game with. Okay, that was a very short, clumsy explanation, but hopefully it made sense. And if you have any questions, just put them in the comment section below. Now, how do we tie this into TCGs, though? How does this idea fit into the trading card game, genre? Well, here's how I would like to separate them. For micromanagement, this is more of what I'm thinking of. Your micro is more about the current turn you're on. I'm gonna skip forward just one slide real quick to show you what I mean by that in conjunction with macro. If micro is on the current turn we're on, then macro is going over the future turns, right? You're making plays that will help you in a turn later or during your opponent's turn, okay? And sometimes they kind of overlap, right? Let me really specify this up front too. I'm not saying you're either a micro player or a macro player. It's not about that. You need to find a way to balance both to take your game to the next level where you're focusing on the micro and the macro and making a decision based on which one needs to take precedence in the moment you're in, okay? So, micromanagement. The main ideas in this area would be what your current turn can offer you. You're in your turn, okay, how do I keep from losing the game? Or how do I win the game, right? You're in the current turn. You're stuck in the moment, right? So this is really big on attacking, right? Because you can only attack on your turn. This is also going to be based on production, buffs, quantity. And macro is going to be focused more on quality versus quantity. So one example of that might be, should I, if I have 10 Dawn, okay, if I have a 10 Dawn turn, should I play out a few characters, maybe like 2 5-cost characters, or should I drop like an 8 or a 9-cost character? Well, it depends. That will depend on the situation, but that's the idea. If you're trying to go for quantity, it's more about the micro side of things rather than the macro side where you're going to get a return later in the game. Okay, and again, this is immediate results. And then these last two over here, before we hop over to the right, is initiative and being proactive. Like you're taking the initiative, you're the proactive one, you're producing threats, you're trying to be aggressive towards your opponent, you're trying to go at them and force them to answer you. Okay, so that's what I think of with the micro concept. The last but not least, this is if you don't like the idea of micro versus macro, the number one thing I can say is sequencing. Sequencing is a massive part of all that encompasses my idea when it comes to micromanagement. Make sure you've sequenced your cards correctly. Make sure you've played out this versus that. You know, it all has to do with sequencing, attaching Dawn, not having any unrested Dawn or active Dawn. You know, making sure you don't have any active Dawn at the end of the turn unless you need it for the next turn for your opponent's turn for a counter. Okay, and don't worry, we will go into more details in a minute here. I'm just getting the overarching ideas out of the way. Macro management. Now, I'm going to almost go backwards here. Excuse me. Where micromanagement was all about sequencing the turn you're on, macro management is more about pacing yourself to make sure you make it into the late stage of the game without depleting your hand. So you still have answers. You're not throwing away all your cards. Make sure you're pacing yourself and battling for the long game. So this is going to have a lot to do with future turns, like I said, making sure you're preparing yourself for future turns. The absolute best example I can give for this would be like using your searchers, your top 5 searchers properly. Or should I take this hit or should I not take this hit? Talking about to life. Should I use a blocker or should I not? Should I even attack this turn? Like notice the second point, not attacking / blocking. Maybe I don't even attack this turn. And that is you preparing for the macro, stage of the game, the long term of the game. Okay, so of course, instead of production, we're focused more on developing and upgrading our quality in macro management. And I don't want there to be too much confusion on micro versus macro. I'm not saying like micro is the aggro deck and macro is the control deck, but it's more about the player's mindset. And hopefully that starts to set in. I think newer players will probably struggle with that concept, like, well, what's the difference? But the better players will understand exactly what I'm talking about. And hey, that's just something to strive for. And hopefully I'm not trying to be too vague with these. I'm not trying to confuse anybody or be cryptic or anything like that. I'm just trying to get these ideas out there. You're investing towards your future results with the macro management. And like I said, we will go over examples of these. Okay, and then the last two here is the counter initiative. You're taking away the initiative of your opponent. And this has to do with blocking, right? Like if they're attacking and you're blocking, you're stopping what they're doing to some extent. And this is a little more reactive with the macro management, because think of it like this. You might be you might be hindering yourself on the turn you're on, so that you'll have a larger advantage later in the game. You'll get benefits later. So you're going to have to react properly to what your opponent's doing because you're kind of giving up initiative to your opponent. Okay, so hopefully that made sense. Okay, let's keep going. So here's the first example. All right, so here's the board state. Pause it if you need to. I'm just going to move my face like over to here maybe. Okay, yeah, y'all can see everything just fine. Pause it if you need to and try to figure out what is wrong with this play. I'm just going to wait 2 seconds. If you need more time, just pause it. Okay, so right here, notice the 3 Dawn is tapped. I played out Shariah, and then I attacked with Red Purple Law. So this is an example of a micromanagement failure to some extent, where it's like, well, wait a minute. Why did you play out the blocker before attacking? My sequencing wasn't correct. Okay, and by the way, there's another issue as well. Notice what's in my hand. I left my hand down here so you might be able to have some other ideas. Playing Shariah is much more of a reactive play to what my opponent has on the board because it's just a blocker. Why not play Chopper in this situation? Well, first of all, swing first, right? The first thing is I should have swung first before playing a character. Then, instead of playing out Shariah, I could have played out something like Tony Chopper, which actually has way more synergy with my leader and can allow me to be more aggressive into my opponent if they're not able to remove it. Because now, whatever they play the following turn, I'm going to be able to reduce the cost of that character, right? Or, excuse me, not the cost, but the power of that character, and I can take it out with my leader's effect at that point. So those are things, that is an idea of what I consider micromanagement. So whoever this player is, which was me in this example, whoever this player is, they did a bad example of, like, they did not manage their turn properly on the micro level. Okay, so there's one example. And by the way, this, if you're wondering, well, why does it matter, right? Why does it matter? Well, guess what? What if this top card is Tempest Kick? Look at the trigger, KO a 3 or less. Well, that's just one card, right? Well, what if it's Ice Age? That also KOs a 3 or less. Well, okay, 2 cards. What about an OP08? What if it is a Who's Who, okay, where it can KO 3 or less? So you see what I'm saying? There's a very real reason you need to sequence your cards properly, or you can potentially get very punished in the process. Okay, for the next one here, let me move my face back. All right, for this example, Pause it, try to figure it out real quick. I'm sorry if my face is in the way. I'm actually going to just make my my picture smaller so you guys can see it better. Should I play out the Nami? Yes or no? Okay, I say why. It should say why or why not. I'm not trying to force an answer. So I have this Nami in my hand. I increased the size of the picture so you can read it if you need to. But basically, it is a top 3 searcher. Okay, it is when you play the card, you can pay 1 Dawn to look at your top 3 cards and draw a film card from it and put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. Okay, well, how much Dawn do I have this turn? I only have 3 Dawn. Now, let's analyze the board state. Okay, we're on the turn. We need to focus on our micromanagement currently. You know, I would say this. Whenever you're making a play, I think you should focus on the micro first because you are in the current state of the game you're in. But then, after you've analyzed that, you need to also keep the macro in mind. Because here's what I'm going to say here. This is not even really even a micro mistake. Because I'm looking at my opponent's side of the board. And maybe that's another thing I should have said, guys. Let me go back real quick. One thing I should have said about micro versus macro is micros, you're more focusing on the current turn you're on, versus macro, you're focusing on your opponent's turn or turns in the future. Okay, like this would make you think like, okay, I need to leave some Dawn active to use my counter events and things like that. Well, in this situation we were just in with Nami, a very similar situation. Should I play out the Nami? Yes or no? And my answer, I mean, you guys pause it, make sure you get yours first. My answer is no, I should not. Okay? Because notice what's on my opponent's side of the board. They have this stage. I'm sorry if you don't know what the stage is if you're a brand new player. Just know that this can reduce the cost of your character by 2. And then your leader can also reduce the cost of your opponent's character by 1. Okay? Well, here's the reason why I was saying you should not play out the Nami. Because if you play it out, just trying to establish initiative, it's actually just a flawed play in this situation. Because in this situation, my opponent had Brook. Well, there are other situations where my opponent might have something like, well, Lucci. It's a little too early for them to Lucci, but there are other cards, you know, that could potentially take your guy out. Maybe not in this exact situation, but that was the case here, guys, where this guy had a Brook ready. He established the Innie's Lobby right on turn 1, and if I play out my Nami, I get 0 value for the card. 0. As in, I just completely lose all value because I cannot use the character's effect the turn that I play it. Okay, now instead, what are some other options I could do this turn? I'm not going to go through all of them, but well, there's really just 2 other ones, right? I could either play out the 3-cost blocker to bait out removal like this card, or I could just load 3 up on my leader and swing 8 at face and get my leader's effect. I'm sorry if I don't think I put the leader's effect on here, guys, but essentially, it's a draw card effect. I reveal the top card of my deck. If it is a film card, it goes right to my hand, but I have to have 1 Dawn attached to my leader to do that. Okay, so good stuff there. So again, this is kind of preparing. I'm looking at this board state. A lot of people just want to establish the Nami and like say go to your next turn so they can get some value from there. But instead, why don't I get immediate value from my leader's effect, like real value, not potential value, straight up value from my leader's effect, and attack my opponent for 8. And let's just see for this situation. Now they could have countered out it if they wanted, but then they go down 2 cards in hand, guys. We'll take that. We either take a life from them or we'll take 2 cards. We'll take that pretty much every time, right? So that's one of the situations where you really need to be focused on what the board state is, what your play will do. What are the ramifications if I play this card? What if they have this, or if they have that, or if they have this, or if they have that? Okay. Here's another example. I think we got 2 more examples here. Should I move my face? That's what I was going to say. All right, let me move it over here. Should we take this attack? Why or why not? Okay. Now, I did mention this example, so for anyone who watches my videos, you probably already know the answer to this one. I am in a situation, I made sure to put my mouse over my my Dawn there. Notice I have 4 Dawn. My opponent is on their 4 Dawn turn, which means I attacked with my leader. Let me show the leader real quick. Oh, whoops. There we go. So let me show my leader real quick. This leader has the effect of when attacking, I can turn 2 cards from the top of my life face up to add a Dawn card to my resource. From my Dawn deck and set as rested. Sorry guys, struggled there. So that's why these cards are face up in my life. Okay, so that didn't give you an answer yet, by the way. I'm just explaining the board state. So I have this card and this card face up, but look what's in my hand. So should we take this attack? We can easily counter out of a 6K attack, right? We could actually just play out a Flampy, right? Play out a Flampe and counter out of this. But there's an argument for taking the attack, and there's an argument for not taking the attack. Hear me out. If we take the attack, we have this card in our hand. What does this card do? Notice what this one. So if we take the attack, right, the Flampe will go to our hand. Now we have two 2K counters in our hand. Our hand size goes up and gives us a strong 2K utility counter. But check this out, guys. If we take that card, excuse me, we will only have one card face up in our life. And look what this card does. You may turn one card from the top of your life cards face down. Okay, so this beige right here under the Flampe, you can turn it face down and add one Dawn card from your Dawn deck and set it as active. So, what does that mean? So remember, they attack into us, we take it in this case. We draw a card for the turn, we untap and go to 6 Dawn for our turn. Then, we use Katakuri to go to 7 Dawn, and now we can use our Leader's Effect again and go up to 8 Dawn. Which means on our following turn, we'll be able to play out a card like this. Okay, so that's the argument for taking the attack. But it's not always clear-cut, is it? Because what's in my hand? I don't see one of these cards in my hand, do you? Nope, because I didn't draw one. So there's another argument for saying that maybe we should actually counter out. Because no matter what, with the cards we have in hand and with our Leader's Effect, we could choose to do it however we want to, and we'll for sure get to 9 Dawn on the following turn, and we already have a 9 Dawn play in our hand. You see where it gets very technical. It gets very, you know, it does get very, it can even kind of gambling. You know, you're kind of gambling. Like in this situation, I would use the play I just said. I would take this hit to get another card in hand. I'd play out the Katakuri, which gives me tempo, because, you know, I don't know what my opponent's going to play next. They'll probably play out like a Brook or something to KO my pudding, but that's fine. I want to play out my Katakuri, because just in case I draw one of these cards in my next hand, I'm going to be ready. Sorry, guys, my face is in the way for that part. But yeah, I want to be able to draw one of these cards and be ready to just plop these things down, because they're a win condition by themselves, right? So that's my logic on why I would actually take the hit to ramp up to 10 Dawn. And of course, 10 Dawn is better than 9 Dawn. It just simply is, right? It's just simple numbers, it's simple math. Okay, I think we got one more example. What card should I pick and why? So this is another example of just hardcore macro, right? This is a straight up macro decision. Okay, my hand is on the bottom here. Notice my hand. Okay, I gotta move my face one more time. Okay, my hand is down here at the bottom, right? Where I have the Hiyori, the Flampe, the Luffy, and the Sabo. I play out Garp for turn. It's my turn 1 play. And these are the options I get. So first of all, I can't grab Hiyori. I cannot grab Thunderbolt. So process of elimination, those are off the table. Well, I only have 3 options left. I have Luffy, Sabo, and Ace. And in this situation, take a second, tell me what you would pick and why, right? And for any of these that you don't agree with me on, hit me up down in the comment section. Let's just keep it respectful. I love talking about these different, different lines of play that are possible. Okay, give you a second. Pause it if you want more time. I would actually take the Luffy in this situation. Okay, I think in the example I'm about to show, I think I take the Sabo, but I like looking back and fully analyzing it. Notice what I don't have in this. Like I already have a Sabo in my hand, so I have that missing piece of the puzzle, right? And that's the thing about your searcher, right? Is you're trying to fix your hand. You're trying to set your hand up for success and make sure you can win over the course of the game. Well, if I don't get access to some of the little guys, the 2-cost guys, and a Gecko Moria, I'm in a lot of trouble. Okay, so let's just see what the next part is here. So like I said, for this example, I chose to get Sabo in case I needed to do a double one of his effect. So I'm on 5 Dawn turn now. My opponent just has a Spandam, and they didn't want to attack into me. They attacked into my Garp, and I'm on my 5 Dawn play now. What would you play and why? Okay, there's really only, actually, there's a lot of options in this situation. What are all the options? Hey, the first and foremost easy, let's just try it, is we could play out Sabo, because that's going to draw us 2 cards and trash 2 cards, because there's still a card missing from our hand that we need for the later stages of the game, right? It's this 8-cost card called Gecko Moria. We still need that card if we want to, if we want to go into the late stages of the game and still be able to compete. However, there are other options as well. My opponent obviously doesn't want to attack my life. That's very standard in the current meta, to not attack into Black-Yellow Luffy. Okay, well, we have 2 Flampes in hand. Well, we could play out Flampe and a Garp and even a Hiyori if we need to. Like, we have a lot of options there. Speaking of Hiyori, we could start our turn off with a Hiyori just to set a card into our life, but we don't really have an option. So actually what we would want to do first is play out Garp to search for like maybe a Luffy or a 5-cost Luffy or a 2-cost Sabo, and then we could arrange it from there. So do you see how like we're tapping into the macro element of the game? Like, okay, we're playing turns on turns on turns ahead, or like actions on actions on actions. We're not just focusing on the micro with a deck like this. Now, one thing I will say is there are certain decks are much more micro-oriented. There's not a whole lot of like playing for future turn. There always is some form of the macro with even in a rush deck. Okay, but some decks don't have to focus as much on the macro element of the game, and pretty much all decks do have to focus on the micro element of the game. You do have to like consider all these different lines of play, because this is one line of play, right? I could play out Garp. That does a top 5 search for one of the 3 brothers. Say I get a 2-cost Sabo in there. Okay, well now what I could do, that was just 1 Dawn. I have 4 Dawn left. So now what I could do is play out Hiyori, replacing the top card of my life to my hand with a Sabo, and still play out the Sabo for the turn. You see what I'm saying? Or maybe I might completely whiff on the Garp search. Wow, that was a struggle, guys. Okay, but there's all these different lines of play. So for this example, though, let me just show you what I did. I played out the Sabo. And look what the 2 cards are that I ran into. A Thunderbolt and a Luffy. Well, now we have more options. Now we have more things to talk about. What card would you cycle? Let me move my face down a little bit. What card should I cycle out here? So I'm going to be honest. Like in my mind, I think what I would cycle out in this specific situation is I would probably trash the Thunderbolt, because I'm actually maybe I don't trash the Thunderbolt because I don't know when is my opponent going to attack into me. And I think in this situation, probably the safest bet to trash would be the 2-cost Luffy. Well, see, there's another thing. We could play the 2-cost Luffy, or excuse me, the 5-cost Luffy in our hand into our life with our Hiyori, and then cheat it out the next, do this next turn. Sorry, guys. I should have specified. Next turn, when we have 7 Dawn, we could use Hiyori to take the card from our life, put in the 5-cost Luffy, and cheat it out with our Luffy's effect, and we could even draw cards like that while staying at 7 health. That's a very safe place to be. So there are so many factors involved in these searches, and as you become a better player, especially a better macro player who focuses on what do I need to fully fix my hand and take this to the end game, your decisions will get better and better and better. And this is another thing that I haven't talked about much, but someone actually mentioned it in my comment section. They asked me, it's this idea of how long does it take to master a deck? That's a great question. There's some type of saying out there, I'm going to butcher it, guys, but I think you'll know what I'm saying. But it's something along the lines of, like, it takes like 10,000 hours of whatever your game is, whatever your practice or hobby is, to become a total master of it, right? I think it's an old chess quote or something like that. I can't remember. If someone knows, put it in the comment section below. I didn't say it perfectly. You'll have to, like, do some searching. But the idea is still remains the same. The idea is it takes, potentially years to become the best at something, right? And to become a expert or a master on something, which is fine, right? And that's why a lot of the players that you see that are already good at one piece and they're doing very well in tournaments, they may have came from another background of TCGs, whether it be Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, Pokemon, whatever, right? Whatever. So they have these years of experience playing TCGs. They come over to One Piece and they're playing against, probably a lot of new players as well. And they just have this way higher advantage on them, like this higher skill ceiling. And it's not like they're better than you or something. It's just that they have more practice. They've had more time to get better, things like that. But anyway, in this specific situation, back to what we were talking about, what card would you cycle? Honestly, it's hard to say, right? And I think I'll leave this one open. It's just up to you. Because here's what we need to take into consideration. Move my face back real quick. There are some things we have to take into consideration. We have still not seen a Gecko Moria. So doing a Garp search is extremely dangerous. So we might want to trash the Garp. Okay? What are some other cards we have not seen yet? We haven't seen Ace or Sabo in this hand. And I'm sorry for the players who have no idea how to play Black Yellow Luffy. Just understand that in this deck, you're having to, it's more of a combo deck, so you need specific pieces here and there in order to win. In order to make the deck function, you have to have the 3 pieces I just showed. You technically don't have to have Gecko Moria, but he sure does help. He sure does take the deck to another level. But these cards you do have to have if you're going to start gaining life and things like that. Okay, so that's just something to think about, and that's the end of this part of it. I do have some other examples real quick before I sign off on this video. I do want to go over a few examples real quick. Okay, I have them up right here. So the first game, let me make sure the volume's off, and I'm just going to put my face over my other face here from my video. Give me just a moment to set this up. Okay, so I'm going to hit play and I'm going to talk through it. This is an example. This first one here, let me bring it up. I have it over here. Sorry, guys, give me just a second. Okay, I thought I had it over here. But the idea here is, I'm challenging you as a player. How do I use my Raise You this turn to draw 2 cards? Raise You I have on the side of the screen here. I'm sorry if the quality's not... Let me, I can up the quality, can't I? Hang on. All right, let me go up to here. There we go. So, I got to put my glasses on. It's like, wait, it's still blurry. It's because my glasses aren't on. Okay, so notice this, guys. And let me... there we go. That should be good enough for now for my camera. Sorry, guys. The OCD is kicking in. So for Raise You, if I have equal or less Dawn on the field than my opponent, and if I have 5 less cards in hand, I can draw 2 cards. Well, how do I do that? Right now I have 7 cards in my hand. Well, watch. Let's see how I tackle it here. Okay. So again, I've got my face over my other face here. That's why it doesn't look like I'm saying anything. But in this case, and everything is situational, by the way. I do want to really stress that, guys. Everything is situational in these games. So I'm going to swing out first. So I'm focusing on my sequencing. This is a great example of having good micromanagement. Okay, I'm going to play out the cards in the order I need to play them. I have to play out a card from my hand to get down to 6 cards. Then I can play out my Raise You to get down to 5 cards, and I can draw my 2 cards from that. So here's what I do. Okay, so right here, I'm trying to determine, okay, return 3 Dawn with my leader's effect. That's what the leader does, and it plays out a card. So now I was able to do that, and by the way, let me pause, and I was able to generate 2 Dawn from my 2 Eustace Kids effects there. So this was just an example, and I will link this video in the comment section below for those who want to see like the full comprehensive guide on Red Purple Law that I've done. I'll have that linked in the comment section below. But I just wanted to point out here that that's, you know, by improving your micromanagement skills and your sequencing, you're going to be able to do plays that seem impossible at first, but once you figure it out, you can do it from there. Okay, so he does his leader effect. I'm going to smash in here to try and get his last card, and I do, and I'm not going to play out the rest of the video from there. But now you have an idea. Okay, next one here. This is an example of... That's weird. It's like my face is off in this one. It's like I had to change it. Now this one, okay, volume's off. Let me make sure the settings are on 1080. There we go. All right, and now in this situation, the question is, how do I get rid of... Oh, let me pause it. How do I get rid of that 10 cost character that I was just on? Okay, let me hit play. Let me pause it right when I'm on the character. I'm trying to get rid of the Kaido this turn. So my challenge to you is try and figure out down in my hand, how can I get rid of this 10 cost character the most efficiently, where I hit him for exactly 10 and I can remove him in that way. Okay, so let's see how I do it. Pause it beforehand and then, you know, try to figure it out. But I'm going to hit play in 3, 2, 1, and we'll figure it out together. So first things first, make sure I do everything in the right order. Let's do sequencing. Okay, swinging first. I've determined I'm going to need all 10 Dawn for this play. Swing 6, swing 6. I'm getting cards out of hand. And then I'm going to swing, it looks like just for 5. Actually, I'm going to do a card search first with Spandam. Okay, then I'm going to swing 5 into my opponent, using my leader effect to reduce the cost by 1. I'm going to use my stage, reduce it by another 2. Use that event, reduce it by another 3. So now that card only costs 4. I'm going to use Brook to reduce it by 1, and then I'm going to pop it with Kaku. Okay, so that ended up being an exact perfect minus 10 to the card. Because, well, not minus, it was minus 7, but then the Kaku card right here that I played can pop a 3 or less. And this comes with, you know, this is a little bit of math, right? But this is what I would consider a good example of focusing on your micromanagement and going and learning about how to, you know, take care of each situation from there. And that depends on what deck you're playing as well. Okay, and this one, all right, this is the last one I got here. Let me make sure I got this just right. Right there. Okay, sorry guys, like I said, the OCD is kicking in. Let me get the settings up. Whoops, not that. Let me get the quality. There we go. All right. So in this situation, how would you get your? How do I get to 10 Dawn next turn? Notice I'm on 4 Dawn. Okay. Pause it, like I said, if you need more time. Try to figure out how we can get to 10 Dawn. This one's tricky, but I will give you a small hint here. Wink, wink. We did go over this example earlier in the video. Okay, so pause it if you want more time, but let's go through it together now. Okay, so my opponent swings for 5. Should I take this attack? The answer is yes, because, like I said, I'm trying to get to 10 Dawn on this next turn. He swings for 6. I can counter out of this one. That one doesn't matter. In fact, I need to counter out of that one for the effect of my Katakuri. Play it out. It flips the card face over. I ramp a Dawn, swing, leader effect, ramp another Dawn, and now I can get to 10 Dawn on this following turn. So that one was a little trickier. And if you have any questions on any of these, please do not hesitate to put them down in the comment section below. And I will link all of these videos if you want to see them. I have a purple-yellow guide, a Lucci guide, and the first one we saw. What was it? Who was the first guy we looked at? It was Red Purple Law. I have all these different guides that I'll link down below. Okay, well, that's about it, guys. Let me go back to the screen. Today's video was much more of a Theorycraft style video. This was not my standard, but I've not done one of these in quite some time, and I really had this idea on my chest. It's been in my mind. I've had this on my chest for a while now, and I want to know what you guys think about it. How would you explain it? I tried to explain it in the best way that I could. Let me lower my face down here. There we go. I tried to explain it in the best way that I could. And I'm not saying this is some kind of science or anything. I just like to find ways to put to turn the game into something we can focus on and improve in these ways, right? Like with my deck building guides. I'll link those down in the comment section below as well if people are interested. I'm trying to turn everything into at least something we could I don't want to say like compartmentalize or anything like that, but I want to turn everything into like standards so we can go from there and fix things and fine-tune things from there. And with this concept here, I think this is a really, really strong way to take your game to the next level, because what you're doing is you're focusing in on like, okay, maybe, and by the way, guys, if you can, whenever you're playing on the sim, film your games like on a what's it called, OBS. Like, you should record all your games. So that way, games you lose, you could be like, okay, what could I have done differently? And sometimes the answer is nothing, guys. I'm going to be honest. I mean, it's rarely ever nothing, but sometimes there is no sometimes there's just a counter matchup, okay? But still, let's try and take it to the next level. Let's get better and better. Let's see how we can improve and all that good stuff. Right, guys, hope y'all enjoyed that. Please do not forget to like and subscribe. I do need to at least throw up the patrons page real quick. Big shout out to everyone who helps with the channel. Anyone who just likes, shares, comments, subscribes, just watches the channel, you're helping me out. So I really appreciate everybody, and a big shout out to all the guys over here on the patrons page. You guys are the best. Thank y'all so much for helping me extra. I will have an update on the playmats soon for those who are interested, but I still need a little more time to prepare that. I got to get some boxes for shipping and all that stuff, like the little tube boxes for playmat dimensions. All right, that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please do not forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, guys, peace.